The brilliant idea for the Brit and the FBI series not surprisingly originated in that prolific idea factory of yours. What made you decide you wanted to work with a co-author once you'd fleshed out the conceptual basics? And what made J.T. Ellison the right choice as co-writer?
Well, what happened was, and this was in, good heavens, this was 2012. And what came into my mind was this complete family, the hero, the heroine, everything came into my mind. But I knew that I could not write two big books a year. And when Clive, he was alive, of course, and he wrote with multiple people. And so I called him up and I said, tell me what to do. And he says, well, talk to your agent first. And then he said, let me tell you my protocol. And he said, this is what he said, I'm not cheap like Jimmy. This is Patterson. And and I really liked what he did. And so, of course, my agent was orgasmic. And he said, oh, we'll have somebody in-house, don't worry about it. And I was going, oh, yeah, right. I'll be quiet, go away. And my husband and I wanted somebody published. And so we each split up like 20 mystery books each, mystery writers, with more thriller aspects. And we were reading, and independent of each other, we picked JT. She writes nothing like me, but she had this wonderful something, just this spark. And we were laughing because we both wanted her. And so you're not going to believe what a small world it is. Of course, she was with the agency. And in fact, I knew her agent. I've known him for years. My agent is Robert Gottlieb in New York, well, in Connecticut right now. And he worked for him and then worked up to the agency. So I flew her out to Sausalito, California. That's right over the Golden Gate. And we've been best friends since. And I closed down the series after 6 books about a year ago. And, we still email once, twice a day. So I'm very, very fond of her. She is extraordinarily talented. And we are so different, but she could write in my style. It was amazing. And of course, dialogue is always the chancy thing. Nobody can do anybody else's dialogue. So I did all the dialogue.
She and I are from different generations and we have a different vocabulary. So we kind of agreed early on, I can get the story where it needs to be, and she has to put the dialogue in to make it sound like her. Because the readers, she's the brand, right? It's a Catherine Coulter novel. I'm just there helping out. So the books have to sound like her. And I, as much as I tried, could not make them sound like her in the dialogue. Because we just have a different vocabulary. And that, she fixed all of that and the books were great, and yeah. What are you going to do? But dialogue is, when I very first started out, my dialogue was very stilted because I come out of a creative writing background and, they teach you how to write and people declaim in very specific ways. Nobody talks like that, right? They use contractions, they use lingo, they don't have full complete sentences. They have comma splices when they're speaking. You can't write dialogue as you write exposition. You just can't do it. It has to be how people talk. And that's what I did. I'd just go sit at restaurants and listen to how people talk. Just listen and hear and think and be like, all right, and then translate that to the page.
Given that she grew up in a family of scientists, that had to help from the tech side in terms of all the hip technology you two put into these storylines.
In terms of she was born with technology under her armpit, which I was not.
When you and JT are working throughout books like The Final Cut, The Lost Key, and The Devil's Triangle as examples, and you're writing dialogue back and forth between Agent Kane and Scotland Yard Inspector Nicholas Drummond, for instance, who writes who among the two of you?
To begin with, we would get together. Both of us are what's called pantsers, as opposed to plotzers. In other words, I have no idea what a book is about because the characters haven't told me yet. At the most, I'll have a what if idea, like say we have this guy, I don't know who he is or what he is, but he's by himself in a cabin in the Rockies. What happens? And then it goes from there. And she was the same way. But I will tell you, we sat down and we could plot chapter by chapter from 1 to 99. A lot of times it was more difficult because things would change and go, what are we going to do? But she's got a great imagination, and I think I was extraordinarily lucky because you hear so many horror stories of writing partnerships, and I will have to admit, and I've been told this, that the majority don't work. It's like a first year in business. Most of them go out of business. Well, that's true also in writing partnerships, but we're very much alike in terms of, well, she's Mutt and I'm Jeff, to be honest about this, or I'm Mutt and she's Jeff, whichever one is tall. When we have a picture made together, she has to kneel down and I go up on my tiptoes. But we're just very, very close. She's moving right now. She's a cat lover like I am. We're both Republicans, which is really interesting. Her mom, her mom, and she did too, worked in the Reagan White House. And she's just an amazing writer.
By the time you get to more recent books in the series, like The Sixth Day and The Last Second, had you developed favorites among the catalog so far?
I have to go with The Devil's Triangle. That was, I think, my favorite. I was very, very fond of Kitsune. And Kitsune is just a winner. And she and her husband, you know, are very much in that book. So it was very unbelievable. Of course, we have a tsunami coming to Washington, D.C., but I mean, this is fiction. We're having fun. So yeah, I guess that's my favorite. But then again, the end game was really something. You know, that was wild.
Absolutely.
JT came up with Covenants of the Earth. You know, and I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. I think Nigel and Combe. Combe is the butler back in England. He was developed before the series was ever even started. I knew him very well, and he had a son, Nigel, who was raised with the hero Nicholas, and Nigel comes to New York with Nicholas, and it's always an embarrassment to have an FBI agent with a frickin' butler. And of course, his grandfather, who owns and runs Delphi Cosmetics in England, they're very, very rich. And he insisted on buying Nicholas this beautiful brownstone up in the East 60s, you know, and he is so embarrassed about it. And then he has to admit, he says, oh no, Nigel discovered Barney's. And they're real people to me, you know?